Hi everyone, this time I'm going to share with you the novel entitled Wuthering Heights, written by Emily Bronte. Wuthering Heights is a classic novel known for its dark and intense tale of love between Catherine Earnshaw and Heathcliff. The characters of this novel are Heathcliff, the protagonist, a dark-skinned orphan boy found by Mr. Earnshaw on his trip to Liverpool and falls in love with Catherine Earnshaw. Next is Catherine Earnshaw, the protagonist also, Heathcliff beloved and daughter of Mr. Earnshaw. Third, Handley, son of Mr. Earnshaw, brother of Catherine and husband of Francis, and the father of Harriton. Next is Mr. Earnshaw, father of Catherine and Hindley, and who adopted and named Heathcliff, and the owner of Wuthering Heights. Edgar Lenton, husband of Catherine Earnshaw, whom Heathcliff hated the most. Isabella Lenton, Edgar's sister, who falls in love with Heathcliff and marries him. Kathy Linton, Edgar's daughter and Catherine. Harton Earnshaw, son of Henley and Francis, Catherine's nephew. Lenton Heathcliff, Heathcliff's sons with Isabella, forced by Heathcliff to marry Kathy. Frances Earnshaw, wife of Henley. Nellie Dean, housekeeper of Wuthering Heights, who knows the happening in the story. And lastly is Mr. Lookwood, the tenant who rents Thrushcross Grange and visited by Catherine's ghost. The novel begins with its narrator, Mr. Lookwood, the new tenant of a fine estate called Thrushcross Grange. He pays a visit to the neighboring property Wuthering Heights, which is owned by a troubled man named Heathcliff. He finds himself snow. Lookwood passes the night at Wuthering Heights by reading the diary of Catherine Earnshaw, the former inhabitant of his room. While reading, Lookwood is visited by Catherine's ghost, who asks to be let in through the window. Upon returning home, Lookwood falls ill and asks his housekeeper Nellie Dean, who used to work at Wuthering Heights, to tell him what she knows about the place. Nellie's story begins with the original owner of Wuthering Heights, a gentleman farmer named Mr. Earnshaw, who returned from a trip to Liverpool with a dark-skinned orphan boy he found roaming the streets, naming the boy Heathcliff. Earnshaw raises the child as his own, inspiring the envy of his biological son Henley, who beats Heathcliff every chance he gets. In contrast, Earnshaw's daughter Catherine immediately befriends Heathcliff and the two become close throughout the years. Eventually, Mr. Earnshaw passes away and Hindley returns from college to take over as the new head of Wuthering Heights, bringing his new wife Frances. Hindley relegates Heathcliff to the level of a servant, but Catherine continues their friendship with Heathcliff. One day, Catherine and Heathcliff caught spying on a civilized Linton family who live in a Thrushcross Grange. Unfortunately, Catherine got bitten by Linton's dog, so Catherine stays at the Lintons for 5 weeks to get healed. During this time, Catherine also becomes interested with Edgar, Linton's son. And Frances, wife of Henley, gave birth to a son, Hareton, and died soon after. Hindley leads to despair and alcoholism, neglecting the upkeep of Wuthering Heights. Catherine, after accepting a marriage proposal from Edgar, she admits to Nellie that despite her consuming affection for Heathcliff, she cannot marry him due to his inferior social status. Overhearing this, Heathcliff runs away for 3 years and comes back with revenge to those who wrong him. While spending time with Catherine at Grange, Heathcliff indulges the affection of Edgar's sister, Isabella, in an attempt at revenge on her brother. Ultimately, Edgar cannot stop Heathcliff and Isabella from being together and they elope. Catherine in her room refuses food and falls ill even though she is pregnant with Edgar's child. Eventually, Catherine died that very night after giving birth to a daughter, Kathy. Meanwhile, Heathcliff and Isabella return to Wuthering Heights, miserable, unhappy, and isolated. Marked by grief, Heathcliff calls on Catherine's ghost to haunt him for the rest of his days. Hindley dies soon after his sister, thus making Heathcliff the head of Wuthering Heights. Plagued by Heathcliff's cruelty, Isabella flees to London, giving birth to their son Linton. When Linton is 12 years old, his mother Isabella died. Heathcliff begins to encourage a romance between Cathy and Linton. Following Edgar's funeral, Heathcliff forces Cathy to live at Wuthering Heights as a servant tasked with caring for Linton, who eventually dies. Cathy detests the uncivilized Hareton, who is by now in love with her. Tiring of the gloomy moors, Lookwood moves away but encounters Neely while passing through the area 8 months later. Neely explains to Lookwood that Heathcliff grows so obsessed with Catherine's ghost that he stopped eating and sleeping. One day, Neely found him dead and Heathcliff buried beside Catherine's tomb. And Cathy and Hareton are finally free from Heathcliff's tyranny and they are able to build a new life together. So the key theme of this novel is the dangers of unrequited love. Heathcliff's obsessive love for Catherine leads to a chain of destructive actions, highlighting how unfulfilled desires can lead to bitterness and pain for both the giver and the receiver. So in this novel, what touches me is the nature of love. This novel explores different forms of love, the passionate, the possessive, the familial, and the enduring. It questions whether love can truly exist without reciprocation, and we know the power of true love, and it's quite dangerous if a person truly loves. So I want to share a quote from this novel. It is from Catherine Earnshaw. She said that I've no more business to marry Edgar Linton than I have to be in heaven, and if the wicked man in there had not brought Heathcliff so low, I shouldn't have thought of it. It would degrade me to marry Heathcliff now, so he shall never know how I love him, and that, not because he's handsome, Nelly, but because he's more myself than I am. Whatever our souls are made of, his and mine are the same, and Edgar's is as different as a moonbeam from lightning or frost from fire. So this quote reveals Catherine's internal conflict. She acknowledges her deep, almost spiritual connection to Heathcliff, stating that their souls are the same, whoever she chooses to marry Edgar Linton for social status, believing it would be degrading to marry Heathcliff. This decision, driven by societal pressures, sets the stage for the novel's tragedy. The imagery comparing Edgar to a moonbeam and Heathcliff for lightning highlights the stark contrast between their personalities. Edgar's calm refinement versus Heathcliff's wild passion. So in this novel, Wuthering Heights, the lesson that we might learn is that love and obsession can be destructive forces. The novel explores the passionate yet ultimately destructive love between Heathcliff and Catherine Earnshaw. Their choices, driven by their intense emotions, lead to a cycle of revenge, suffering, and ultimately tragedy.